Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi. Zevachim Pei Hey. We begin on Pei Daled Amid Beis, 3 lines from the bottom of the Amid. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Here comes the halach. Hashechet behema balayl b'fnim. If one takes a behema, a korban, and does the shechita on that animal inside b'fnim in the Beis Hamikdash. Problem is, it was the wrong time. Balayla, it was at night. So the shechita was okay, but timing was off. And he didn't stop there. He continued on. Vehela b'chutz. He offered it on an altar outside the Beis Hamikdash. Now we all know that shechut chutz is a violation, a transgression. A person does a korban outside the Beis Hamikdash. He does a shechita outside. He does the halah, which means he offers it as an offering outside the Beis Hamikdash. On either one of those averos, he's liable to kares. Says Rabbi Yochanan, just as she would take this, behema korban, and do both phases outside, shechita outside, halah outside, he'd be chayiv twice. Let's say it was done b'shogeg, right? He has to bring 2 korban chatas, one for the shechita b'chutz, and then for the halah b'chutz as well, despite the fact that once he does shechita on a korban outside the mikdash, it invalidates the korban. It's the wrong place, right? Still, we have a special pasuk, right? That he's chayiv too. He's chayiv for phase 1 and phase 2, despite the fact that once phase 1 was executed, the animal was not possible, not fit for korban in the Beis Hamikdash any longer. Likewise, says Rabbi Yochanan, she began the process inside and did it at night, so it invalidated the korban, made it possible. Nevertheless, if he takes that material outside and does hakrava outside, he is chayiv kares, or if it's b'shogeg, chayiv echatos, for doing phase 2 outside the Beis Hamikdash. Again, on Rabbi Yochanan, hashechet behema balayla b'fnim, he does the shechita on the korban in the Beis Hamikdash at night, which makes it possible. But then v'hela b'chutz, he takes it outside and is makriv it outside. Chayiv is chayiv for doing halah outside. Lo yitei b'chusa, it's no less, it's no worse. Mishechet b'chutz u'mala b'chutz, from where he did both things outside. Phase 1 shechita and halah phase 2 is chayiv twice. Why is he chayiv on phase 2 once the korban was shechted outside its pot? It's the way it works. So despite the fact that it became puzzle through phase 1 outside, she continues on and does phase 2 is chayiv twice. This is no worse than that. So again, even though the korban was puzzle once shechted during nighttime in the Beis Hamikdash, but once he takes it outside and does halah, which is basically phase 2, he's chayiv despite the fact that it's a deficient korban. Mosev Rav Chia bar Abba, I have a question from a brisa which speaks about a similar case, except instead of animal, it's a bird. Now, a korban bird doesn't get shechita, it gets malika, right? Head is flicked off via the thumbnail of the kohen. What if he did shechita on a kodesh bird in the Beis Hamikdash, and then he takes it outside and proceeds and is mala umala b'chutz? He is pater. Why? Because once he does shechita on the oif inside, it's like it's no longer valid for a korban. And therefore, taking this material outside and being mala entails no violation. Versus, had he done both steps outside, shachat b'chutz, and also umala b'chutz, of course he would be chayiv. So again, if he does both things outside, they're both labeled as shchutei chutz and halah b'chutz, he's chayiv twice. But when he started off inside, in the Beis Hamikdash, and for some reason it got bungled, it was at night, or in this case he did shechita instead of malika, right? He's pater. That's his kasha. Just like in this case, shechita instead of malika is pater. Likewise in the case of nighttime. Now, according to you, Rabbi Yochanan, why do we say that shechita inside instead of malika aborts this process? Just Just like if you take the bird outside to begin with, and does shchita outside, it's not meant for shchita, meant for malika, but still, if he does shchita outside, he's chayiv one. If he does halal outside on that bird, he's chayiv twice. So why, when he does shchita inside and takes it outside to complete the process, is he potter? We should say, look, it's no worse than if you would have done everything outside. Apparently, we don't say that. Tiyufta, it's a kasha, a refutation of Rav Yechanan. So likewise, if he takes the behema and does shchita inside, but it was nighttime, which makes a puzzle. Now it's an aborted korban. And even if he proceeds and takes it outside and does ha'alah outside his potter. Another way to resolve this question would be, it's not going to be a refutation of Rav Yechanan at all. He's speaking about an animal, a behema, which is meant for shchita. Whether it's chulin or kachim, you need to do shchita. That's the appropriate method of, right, pertaining to that animal. So although in this case it was nighttime, look, nighttime is sort of an external impediment. Timing goes off. But the shchita process is considered, valid to a certain extent, valid enough that when he takes this behema and takes it outside and is ma'ala b'chutz, we treat it like he was ma'ala a korban outside, as opposed to our brisa just mentioned, where we had a bird that was shechted, shchita by a bird. Shchita sa'oif bifnim. If he does a shchita on a kodesh bird in the Beis Hamikdash, it's like he killed it. It's a non-starter. Shchita is never applicable to a korban bird. Mikta kata is like he killed it. So the material is considered useless. And by taking it outside and being ma'ala on a mizbeh, nothing happened. Okay, so in a nutshell, according to Rabbi Yechanan, there's a korban, a behema, which had shchita in the Beis Hamikdash during nighttime, even though the korban technically is possible, but since it experienced a proper shchita, timing was off, the act was a valid act. It's considered enough korban to the extent that if you take it outside and do ma'ala b'chutz is chayiv. But that wouldn't apply by a bird that was shechted instead of nimlak. Amar Ula. Here comes another halacha. Amar Ula imurei kachim kalin. We discussed yesterday that many korban materials, despite the fact that they're deficient and faulty and failed and puzzle, once placed on the mizbeach, the mizbeach takes hold of them, so to speak. Nasu lachmoi shel mizbeach. They're deemed the food of the mizbeach, and they get sort of attached to it, and you no longer remove them. Here comes an interesting question. What about imurei kachim kalim? So kachim kalim are the lower level karbanos, shlamim, etc., which have to wait until zrika for them to get elevated. Once it's fully processed through the zrika, the korban material is not elevated to the extent that the halacha of me'ila gets activated on the parts that belong on the mizbeach, on the emurim, on the fats. Let's say he takes those fats, puts them on the mizbeach before zrika. Now, there's nothing deficient. There's no psul here. It's just timing is off. So once again, we speak about a timing issue. Similar to the previous Gemara where it was just nighttime instead of day. There's nothing inherently wrong with these materials. Amar Ula imurei kachim kalim shehelan. He took them up on the mizbeach lefnei zrikas daman before zrika occurred. Lo yerdu. You no longer remove them. Why? Same point. Nasu lachma shel mizbeach. They become the lechem, the bread of the mizbeach. Despite the fact that it's still early in the process, still premature. But there's nothing inherently wrong with them. Okay, so you'll wait, you'll do the zrika, and you'll be good. But the point is, this is proper korban material, which is suitable for mizbeach. Once it's up there, you leave it up there. Amar Rab Zera, afanana mitanina. I will try to support this halacha based on our Mishnah learned yesterday. Amongst the items on that list of materials which are meant to stay up there once they're up, we have shenishbach dama, v'shiyatza damochs lekloim, a korban whose blood spilled out or left the premises. Nevertheless, if you take the korban material, the emurim, whatever, you put it on the mizbeach, you leave it there, you don't take it off. Now, if it works there, certainly in our case, where it was just a question of prematurity, a question of timing. Look, if even in those cases, where there's no more suitable blood to speak of, it's spilled out, it left the premises. If he would choose to proceed with zrika, he doesn't have that option. Blood is not accessible in that case. Amris, we still tell you, if the material went up on the mizbeach, it doesn't come down. Certainly in our case, where zrika is still an open option. If he would choose to do zrika, sure. Blood is accessible, it's okay, nothing wrong. L'koshkin, certainly wouldn't you agree that a murin that already been placed on the mizbeach stay there? Well, says the Gemara, not so simple, not so quick. Perhaps your inference from that mission is correct, but with a big but. Maybe it's talking about Kaddish Kadashim, karbanos which are deemed more holy. Chatos, Asham, Oila. In those cases, the Rashi says Kedushas HaGuf is already there even before Zerika. You don't need the Zerika to activate the higher level Kedusha on the carbon. You see, by Kaddishim Kalim, they get upgraded during the Zerika. But so you can ask, well, what happens before Zerika? If the Imurna are in the Mizbeach, they have potential, but they're not yet, that's our discussion. But Kaddish, it's no question about them. Of course, they're sanctified on the highest level, even before Zerika. And that's why once those materials reach the Mizbeach, they stay there. Asks the Gemara, really? So the mission is only referring to Kaddish Kachim, Hari Pesach, which is a carbon mentioned in that mission as well. The Kachim Kalamu, that's the Kachim Kalam. Apparently we discussed those as well. The answer is, yeah. The reference to Pesach, which happens to be Kachim Kalam, only relates to one example, one scenario of the Shaloi Lishman, where he did it without the right intention. But the earlier cases speak about Kaddish Kachim. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the Mishnah, we'll see. Tanan. So the Mishnah concludes at the end, V'chulon she'alu chayin l'gabe mizbeach yerdu. All karbanis, and we assume at this point we're speaking about proper karbanis, not deficient karbanis, proper ksherim, nothing wrong with them. And they happen to walk up on the mizbeach, took a stroll up there, and they're alive on the mizbeach. What do you do? V'chulon she'alu chayin l'gabe mizbeach yerdu. You remove them. A live animal has no business being on the mizbeach. Let's make an inference, a diuk. Only because it's live. Hoshchut and lo yerdu, apparently. If they're up there after shchita, they don't come off. And we're assuming even before zrika. Right? Otherwise, what's the point of discussing it? So, okay, there you go. Carbon material, kosher carbon material, which is up there even before zrika. And we're assuming even kachim kalam. Stay up there. It's a right to ulat halacha. My love, let's assume it refers to all categories. Loishna kaddish kadoshim, loishna kaddishim kalam. That's a right to ulat. Loi, no, not so quick. Says the Gemara, hosh shchutin mehen yerdu, mehen lo yerdu. So live come off, but after shchita, some and some. Sometimes they come off by kaddishim kalam. They have no business being there before zrika. Mehen lo yerdu. In some cases, some of those do not come off. So you can't bring any raya from here regarding your halacha of kachim kalam. V'kulan katani. What do you mean? The Mishnah says kulan all. Apparently we're covering all categories. Yeah, the word kula machayin, speaking about the live ones. Yeah, live, all come off, irrespective of class. But after shchita, that depends what you want. Kaddish kadashim, stay up there because you already have the higher level kedusha. Even before zrika, but kachim kalam needs zrika to allow it access to the mizbeach. Says ma pshita. Well, I mean, if we're talking about live animals that are kosher, obviously it comes off. Why wouldn't you take it off? There's no reason to keep it up there. Rashi says, bring it down, do shchita, and then when time comes, bring it back up there. Why would you even think to leave it up there? Lo l'machayin. Says the Gemara, no, actually, v'kulan means all the live animals that end up in the mizbeach come off. What's the point? Ubeduken sheba'ayin. We're speaking about an animal that has some sort of problem, has a slight blemish in his eye, and in this case, it's not really kosher, except Valibda Rakiva. We are following Rabbi Kiva's shita, who says, the Amar who says, Im Olu Liyerdu. If you shechted a carbon, put the material on the mizbeach, and then discover that it has this slight eye blemish. Im Olu Liyerdu, once they're up, they don't come down, because it's a slight blemish, not so severe. It's a minor mum, as we're going to see later in the Gemara. So according to him, once up, you don't bring it down. So now when the animal strolls up alive on the mizbeach, and you discover that it has this slight blemish, you're faced with a dilemma. Should I take it off the mizbeach and do shchita? Well, then you can't bring it back on the mizbeach. Even if Rabbi Kiva agrees to that. It's only once up, you leave it up there. But if you're going to remove it, that's it, no return. So should we just do the shchita right now and here on the mizbeach? The answer is no. No. Mizbeach only absorbs carbon material after shchita, but not live animals. Okay. So the main focal point of the Mishnah is to reject live animals. And all types. Even if they're slightly puzzle, in which case by removing them you're going to disable them. Doesn't matter. Okay, b'mayu kim to b'psulin. You've just applied this halacha to a deficient animal, to an animal with a slight blemish. Okay, amos safe. Let's move on to the next part of the Mishnah, which concludes as follows. V'chein oilo she'olso chayet l'rish ha-mizbeach teirit. Likewise, an oilo, which happened to walk up into the mizbeach, you remove it. However, shachta b'rish ha-mizbeach, suppose he continued. He did shchita right there. Okay. You here, just complete the process. Yafshid v'natech m'koima. Remove the skin, give it to the, kohanim, take apart the animal and put it on the fire. End quote. Question is, if you're telling me that the animal is puzzle, why would you flay the skin and cut it up? You meant to take it and burn it down in the azara, with the skin, with everything. Torah says you cut apart a kosher oila. Oisa means ksher only if it's proper, not a deficient oila. Well, seifas on ksher. You're right. This last line of the Mishnah is talking about a proper oila that happened to stroll up on the mizbeach, and he happened to do shchita there. You proceed. You do the hefshet and the tuach and put the material on the fire. So what's the point of the Mishnah? If we're talking about a proper oila, what's the Mishnah telling us now? Remove it. Preferably remove it. And if you didn't keep on, what's the point of the Mishnah? Obviously, you should remove it. There's no risk in removing it because you'll put it back up after shchita. Oh, the main point of the Mishnah is the yesh hefshet v'nituach b'reish ha-mizbeach. That if you happen to end up with a oila, kshera, and you did the shchita up there for some, you just keep on going. You don't have to remove it to do the you do the hefshet and tuach right then and there. Says the Gemara, it's not so simple. According to the opinion, that disallows hefshet and nituach on the mizbeach. Why? What's wrong with that? Says Rashi. It's not appropriate to do this type of activity on the mizbeach. Michael Meimar said, how do you explain the Mishnah? Says the Gemara, listen to this. We're not speaking about a standard case. We're speaking about a very unique case. The oila strolled up on the mizbeach alive, and for some reason he did shchita on the oila, and they took the blood and did zrika, and then something happened. It got tummy or something. Had a moment in the sun, had a moment in the light. It was okay for a certain moment. V'nifsal, and then it became disqualified. So now we're stuck. Because if you're going to remove the animal downstairs to do the hefshet v'nituach, you will no longer be able to bring it back up because it's puzzle. The only option is to leave it up there and do the hefshet and nituach upstairs. Now, as to your other question, if oila is puzzle, it doesn't deserve hefshet v'nituach. That's correct according to some opinions, but Not according to all. In fact, Rabbi Lezer of Shimoni, it's going like that Shita Dam, who says, Kivish Nizar Kadam B'Hurtza Basar Shah Achas. Once the oil experienced some partial, success in its procedure, the Zrika was done properly, and the carbon was sort of accepted. Even though a mishap occurred afterwards, you continue on the same road, you have shitana, you remove the skin, and you give it to the Kohanim, as you would do on a standard oila. Va'ir la Kohanim. So that explains why the Mishnah says that this type of case requires hefshet v'nituach on the Mizbeach. Okay, so again we're speaking about an oila that was fine, but then after Zrika, something occurred. You leave it on the Mizbeach and you complete the process. Well, but how do you explain the Brisa, which explains further? What does he do in this case? Murder a kravayim lamata. Kravayim are the innards, the intestines, which are typically rinsed from their waste and then placed on a Mizbeach. Again, we're speaking about the parts of an oil which is completely meant for the fire on the Mizbeach. So the Brisa says, Murder a kravayim lamata. First remove the kravayim off the Mizbeach. Umadichan and rinse them off. Lamali. Why is he doing that? He's harming and ruining the plan here, because once it's removed, deficient material is only good while it's still on the Mizbeach. Once removed, that's it, door gets locked. Says the Gemara, because there's no better option other than removing and rinsing. What then should he do? Now, should he place them on the Mizbeach's fire with its waste intact? It's inappropriate, disrespectful. The pasuk says, "Hakriveinu lefechosecha." This was the Navi chastising the people there. He says, "Why are you bringing deficient, blemished animals to the Beis Hamikdash? Try to give it to your governor. Let's see how he receives it from you. Hayirtzecha, oy hayisafanecha. Will he accept it? Will he be pleased with you?" So, something which is unbecoming doesn't belong on the Mizbeach. What do you mean to ask, why am I rinsing? Of course you have to... Our question was like this. I understand you have to remove it. But once you remove it, what's the point of rinsing it? Just remove it and leave it down. The answer is, because if another kohen happens to chance by unaware of the nature of this material, thinking that it's kosher material, the skin will put it back on his back and burn it up. So you have to rinse it in anticipation of that type of scenario. Ask the Gemara, well then you're working against yourself, because you're basically preparing this for akrava, which is uncalled for. You're rinsing it so that a kohen now is able to put it on the Mizbeach. It doesn't belong on the Mizbeach, it's possible. Should we do something that will trip up the Kohanim, milsa the asuba, that takal, something which can trip them up? Just leave it there with the waste until nighttime and then burn it. The answer is no. Afilu it's still adifa. The respect, honor, kavod element accorded to the carbon material, that factor overrides and supersedes this concern that perhaps it will lead a kohen to misunderstand and shaloyu kache shamayim mutalam kinavela. We don't want carbon material of Hashem to be sitting like a carcass, like a dead animal, like dirty. And so you clean it up, you rinse it off to protect its honor. Okay, so in summation, we had a halacha from Ula, the iburim of kachim kalam, even before Zrika, if they ended up on the Mizbeach, you just leave them there, they become lachmesh al Mizbeach. Although the Zrika is required to turn them into kodesh, turn them into Mizbeach material, to give them mi'ilah, and it's still early in the game. Once on the Mizbeach, you leave it up there. Because what it's missing, i.e. the Zrika, is something external. There's something inherently deficient with this material. Now we attempted to bring a raya from our Mishnah, because we thought we're also speaking, in the Mishnah, we're also speaking about the Iburim Kachim Kalim, which were put on the Mizbeach. We concluded that it's going on Kachim Kadashim only, and we explained the Mishnah accordingly. Oh, here comes the halacha once again. Rab Chia, Bar Abba, by Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Yechon actually asked this question. This very question. Himuri Kachim Kalim Shehelan Lifnei Zrikas Daman. A murim of the Kachim Kalim, which were taken up on the Mizbeach before Zrika, still earlier. in the process. Yerdu, are they meant to be removed? Yerdu or not? Rami asked him, really, this question could have a dual application. So why do you only focus on the question of removal? This really pertains to another basic question as well. Typically, Zrika activates the Me'ilah on the Emurin. In this case, when it's on the Mizbeach, before Zrika. When does Me'ilah apply? From now, because it's on the Mizbeach, or only after Zrika? Me'ilah. You could ask the same question regarding Me'ilah. Amalei says, no, there's no question. Me'ilah, I have no question regarding Me'ilah. Of course. The Zrika, who the Kavalu b'Me'ilah, only Zrika activates Me'ilah. Kikim Bailey, you read that. My only question was regarding removal from his Be'ach. Upashad la yerdu. Ve'im b'Me'ilah, Rabbi Yechon himself resolved this question. He says, even though it's early in the game, you leave it up there, despite the fact that there's no Me'ilah yet. Rav Nachmar Yitzchak Masni Hachi, he had a different version of this question, that the focus in fact was on Me'ilah. Amar B'chia, Rabbi Yechon asked the question, Emurin kachim kalam shelon lifnei zrikas daman. These Emurin, elevated to the Mizbeach before Zrika, what happens to their Me'ilah status? Is it activated now? Only later. Yesh be'Me'ilah? Oiloi. Amalei. Rabbi Ami responded, well, why'd you ask on Me'ilah? You could have asked regarding whether it stays on the Mizbeach or not. V'tiboy elach yirida. Amar lois. He says to him, no, there's no question. Amalei yirid l'kim. I have no question regarding that point. Why? The nasur lachmush Mizbeach. This material becomes the food of the Mizbeach. It gets absorbed in the Mizbeach and stays there. My question only was regarding Me'ilah. Kikim boile le'Me'ilah. But Pashat Hachin Rechan himself resolved, and he says, no and no. Lo yerdu, it's not removed, nor is there Me'ilah. Ve'im b'Me'ilah. Ve'edlu lo yeh psulim b'kodesh. So this relates back to the Mishnah, which gave us sort of a double list. Carbon material, which exhibited a sort of a minor deficiencies, and ones with more severe deficiencies, like blemished carbonis. However, Rakiva took exception. In one case, he says by dukan shaba'ayin, not a very visible blemish in the eye. In that case, once the carbon is up there, leave it up there. Why? Amar Rabbi Yechon, although in the Mishnah he seems to allow all blemished animals, no, it's specific to this, only slightly blemished animal. Ela b'dukan shaba'ayin. Why? Why is this any better? Because this blemish has to it an element of lightness to it, leniency to it. Because if it were to happen to a bird, carbon, it's okay. Rashi explains by a bird, it's unaffected by standard blemishes unless it's like missing a limb, something really ugly and visible. But if something hidden in the eye wouldn't be an issue. So since it's okay by birds, if it happens by an animal, we let it go, we pass it. Once it's on the Mizbeach, we leave it there. Another condition is required. First of all, it has to be minor. Number two, timing. Sequence has to be right. The blemish occurred after this animal was a carbon. V'hu shekadam hekdesh, in this moment, the hekdesh status arrived before it got blemished. So it sort of preceded it. It got its foot in the door first. Okay, so a slight blemish doesn't really interfere as much. But again, if the blemish arrived before the animal was made into a carbon, it's as bad as any. Says the Gemara, okay, so on that note, suppose he has an oila, an animal which is a female, which is not suitable for oila, and it was shechted, put on the mizbeach. What would you say? It comes right off, because let's realize, here the deficiency, the blemish, the wrong gender arrived before the oila was made into an oila. In this case, even Rabbi Kiva agrees it comes off. But it's the kikadam, it's like the blemish preceded the kikadam muma like the eshadamya, and therefore it comes off. By Rabbi Yirmiyah, here comes a new question, interesting, unrelated question. A bird is unaffected by slight blemishes regarding, its suitability for carbon use, right? What about reveya, nirba, right? These are psulim that affect animals. Reveya means interacted with a woman. inappropriately, nirva means a man interacted with him, this type of behema becomes pasul. The same or similar case by a bird. What's the bird's status? Rashi explains the concept of reiveya, of the fowl going out and interacting with a woman, isn't applicable, physically inapplicable by a bird. But nirba is applicable. So the question is, a bird which is a nirba, is a pasul or not? By Rabbi Yirmiyah, yesh nirba ba'ifas, the psul of nirba applies to birds as well, or not? A nirba ba'ifas. What's the question? Miyamrina shall we say, reiveya and nirva are sort of two sides of the same coin, right? So it's one package. It's all or nothing. If both apply, fine, but if only one would apply, then it's not an issue. That's one way to look at it. Or do we say, no, after all, if there was a sin experienced with this bird, then it's possible. Miyamrina shall we say, the pasuk in describing animal behema says, mina behema, an animal card, mina behema, only some behema are suitable. What's excluded? What's pasul? Ha'itzias reiveya, an animal which is deemed reiveya, vanirba. So perhaps it's one package. Kol echad isei b'reiveya, an item which pertains to reiveya, isei b'nirva, likewise pertains to nirva. But a bird which is kol echad leisei b'reiveya can't relate to reiveya. Perhaps leisei b'nirva can't relate to nirva either. Or do we say no? They're not connected. Adilma harei nevda boyavera, after all. An avera was experienced with this bird, and it's pasul. Amarabat Hashma. I can bring a raya from our Mishnah, where we just learned that Rabbi Kiva machshir bali mumin. Right, if the behema experienced this slight blemish, but the evet we leave it on the mizbeach because a similar phenomenon by birds is perfectly acceptable. V'imisa. Now, if we're going to argue and suggest that a bird is unaffected by nirba, okay, so then by behema, which is a nirba, and happens to be on mizbeach, we should leave it up there, because correspondingly, it wouldn't be an issue by a bird, right? We compare the two. V'misa, nachshanami b'nirba. We should allow even a nirba behema through. Since it's okay by a bird, shema mino, that proves our point. That in fact the second side of the equation is correct. Although a bird doesn't pertain to reiveya, but nirba will affect him. I can bring another raya from a brisa that in fact it's so, that even a bird gets affected by nirba. Because the following brisa is clearly speaking about birds, from the very fact that it omits any mention of reiveya, because it was speaking about a bird which doesn't have reiveya. And still the brisa says a carbon bird which is a nirba is pasul. Okay, it's a clear proof. Hanirba, v'amuktzah, or a bird which had been designated for idol worship, anevero was worshipped, estan was given to an immoral woman for her services, and mechir was exchanged for a dog. V'tumtum, a bird whose gender signs are not visible, adregus who has both gender signs. In all these cases, if one did malika on this carbon bird, it's an inappropriate act for this bird, because this bird is not a kosher carbon. In all these situations, if one happens to swallow, eat this bird after malika, it's deemed like a dead bird, and he becomes tummy while he's swallowing it. Shmamina, what does that tell us about a bird nirba? That it's possible for a carbon? Shmamina. So we learned that Rakunta Rabbi Kiva, a slight balmum, once on the mizbeach, stays up there. However, Tanakama disagrees, and so is Rav Chanina's Kanaganim. In fact, he quotes his father. He says, my father would, push them off the mizbeach. My Kamash, what's the point of mentioning what his father would do? It's pretty much just repeating the Tanakama's, opposing view to Rabbi Kiva. Either he's just telling us a story, which gives it more, credibility. The fact is, it was implemented. It wasn't just a position, presented in the Beis HaMedrash. It was actually acted upon, so that sort of gives it more validity. Another way to understand his statement is, my doicha, when he describes his father being doicha balimumin, he meant specifically doicha, which means kala'achayat, backhandedly. Rashi says, quietly, as opposed to derech bezoyen, befarhesya. He wouldn't publicly, throw off the animals in a disrespectful way to the to the carbon animal, you do it, quietly, discreetly. So that was his point. All of these things are puzzle, but you must handle them with respect. Now the Mishnah concludes by saying, look, although these efficient materials, once up on the Mizbeach, are left up there, but once they're removed, let's say they're removed, once they're down, you don't put them back up. Okay, so once up stays up, once down stays down too. It only stays down only if they were as yet unaffected by that fire on the Mizbeach. They were up there for a second, came right down, leave them down. If they show traces of fire on them, in this case, put them back up there. Why, says Rashi? Because now they've achieved a higher level of connectivity to the Mizbeach. In fact, Rashi calls it Nasu Lachme Shel Eish. They've become part of that fire. So now in all cases, they go back up. Rav Mari Masnia Reisha. Rav Mari's version of Ula's halacha related to the Reisha, the previous Mishnah that we discussed, which involved, psulim, deficient karbanis. And there we say that once it started, getting burnt, then it belongs on the Mizbeach. Rav Chanina, however, Misura Masnia Seifi, applied this concept to the next Mishnah, coming up soon, which speaks about ha'at samais. You have a carbon oil which is meant completely for the Mizbeach, but what about the bones? Ha'at samais, ha'gidin, sinews, ha'karnaim, horns, ha'tlafayim, and its hooves. Do they go along on the Mizbeach? They're not really flesh, they're not really... So it depends. Bizman shemuchubar and yalo. While they're still attached to the rest of the animal, so they're, they're tuffle to the ikar, and they go along, and they're burnt on the Mizbeach along with the rest. Pirshu, however, if they come off, they come apart. Now you have a bone in your hand, lo yalu. You don't put them up on the Mizbeach any longer. Okay, so that's the halacha in the next Mishnah. On this, Ula provides that clarity. He says, look, there's an exception to the rule. When is a separated bone going to stay off? It's only true if it hasn't been affected by the fire on the Mizbeach. But let's say you see traces of fire on this bone. Then you put it back on the Mizbeach. Okay, so basically, let's say you had complete animal on the Mizbeach, and then the bone popped off, ended up on the floor. You pick it up and you see a little black on it. Mashla ben Hur, the fire took a hold of it, goes back on the Mizbeach. Okay, so basically we have Ula's halacha. The question is, where does it apply? Something affected by fire belongs back on the Mizbeach. Did it relate to the list of the psulim in the previous Mishnah? Or even to the list of inedible materials, bones, sinews, hooves, discussed in the next Mishnah? So according to Rab Mari, it related to the first Mishnah. According to Chanina Misura, to the second Mishnah. Now, Man the Masni Aseifa, the one that applied to the next Mishnah, by the inedibles, once they're slightly burnt, they are returned to the Mizbeach. Kosh generation, certainly in the earlier list, where we're speaking about flesh, proper materials, which belong on the Mizbeach. Just that they're apostle, they're deficient. So certainly in that case, where they're more connected to the Mizbeach, they're more suitable, so to speak, than just bones and sinews. Certainly over there, once it gets affected by fire, you put it back up there. However, Amanda Masnei Reish, the one that applied to the earlier list of psulim, perhaps only over there because they're inherently suitable for Mizbeach, if not for the fact that they are puzzle. Aval Seifa Lav Niaktar, but he wouldn't apply to the Seifa, to the next Mishnah, where we're speaking about inappropriate materials which are never suitable for Mizbeach when they're alone. So even if they're affected by the fire, you leave them down. Speaking about materials unsuitable for the Mizbeach, says the Mishnah, Ve'elu Malu Yerdu, in contrast to the previous Mishnah, where the materials are inherently suitable, just affected by some sort of fault and deficiency. So once on the Mizbeach, you leave it up there. Not so in the following examples, where these materials are never suitable, not fit for the Mizbeach at all. So even though they're on the Mizbeach, they are removed. Basar kachei kachim, the flesh of kachei kachim, like a chatas and asha, meant for kohanim consumption, not meant for the Mizbeach at all. Basar kachim kalim. U'moisur oimer, leftover of the carbon oimer, meant for the kohanim. Shtei alechem, 2 breads brought on Shavuos. Lechem apanim, brought on a weekly basis. Shiar menachet, leftovers of a mincha. Bacteria, so the incense, meant for the internal Mizbeach, and it's now on the external Mizbeach, it doesn't belong there. These are removed. What about Hatzemah Shebaroshe Kvasim? You have an oila, a sheep, which is totally meant for the Mizbeach. Typically, you remove the skin, but Rashi says the skin around the head is left on, and you have some wool on there. What happens to that? Or Visar Shebarzakan Tayashim, or the hair of the chin area, like the beard of a goat. Vatzamis, or bones, Vagidim, sinews, Akarnaim, horns, Vatlafaim, hooves. They join the carbon or not. Bisman Shem Mechubar, and while they're still attached to the rest of the animal, yalla, they go up there together. Shnema Viktar Koin Sakoil. Ha Mizbecha. Everything. One big package. But Pirishul, if they come apart, Lo Yalo, then they don't belong to the Mizbech. Shnemar, as the Pasuk says, V'isisa Oila Yisecha. How do you process the Oila? Ha-basar v'adam. The Torah singles out flesh and blood, as opposed to bones, sinews, hooves, and horns. So we seem to have a contradiction between Pasuk A, which covers everything, HaKoil, and Pasuk B, which singles out Basar V'Adam. That's the answer. Depends whether it's attached or not. Okay, so in a nutshell, we spoke about Rabbi Yochanan's halacha of a shchita of behema kachim balayla b'fnim, and then takes it outside to do ma'ala b'chutz is chayiv, but certainly it wouldn't work by a oif that was nishchat b'fnim, because that's like miktel katlei. It's like you just killed it, and therefore it's unsuitable for anything. Likewise, if it's taken outside, there's no chiyuv for Allah b'chutz. Rav Chia bar Abin, however, disagreed with Rabbi Yochanan. He says that Kasha seems to disagree with Rabbi Yochanan that a shchita of a carbon b'fnim balayla deems it totally deficient, to the point that even if it takes it, does it outside, there's no longer a chiyuv from Allah b'chutz. What about imuri kachim kalam, taken up to the mizbeach before zrika? Ula says it stays up there, nasu lachma shem mizbeach. And likewise, Rabbi Yochanan concluded accordingly. However, Me'ilah then has to wait until Zrik. Typically, a balmum on the Mizbeach comes off. Rabbi Akiva takes exception regarding a slight blemish, which would theoretically be okay by a bird. So even by a behema, once it's on the Mizbeach, you say, Im Allah la yered. We concluded that nirba applies to a bird as well. And Ula's halacha was at the end that Mashal ben Ur would keep it on the Mizbeach. The question was, what's he talking about? So again, it's going on the case where something had been up on the Mizbeach and came off, where the Mishnah says once off is not returned. But if it was affected by the fire on the Mizbeach, then it's returned. Some say it applies to psulin only. And some say it applies to the atzamais, etc., discussed in the next Mishnah, which typically only belong to the Mizbeach when they're connected with the animal itself, but not once they're separated. However, suppose they were on the Mizbeach and got sort of pulled into the fire and then landed back on the floor. So according to this opinion, you would put it back on the Mizbeach because it's nasu lachmai shel eish. All the best to you and atzlachara.